reporting from Arkham Asylum. This is Gotham Rogues. In this video we spotlight Uma Thurman's Poison Ivy from the movie Batman and Robin. It's another episode of Batman movie villains, and we've now reached Poison Ivy, played by Uma Thurman in Joel Schumacher's Batman and Robin from 1997. In the movie we meet Dr. Pamela Isley, an eccentric botanist who works at a Wayne Enterprises lab in South America. Isley is a fanatic environmentalist and has invented a concoction named Venom that mutates plants, giving them greater chances at survival. Her boss is the mad and corrupt scientist Jason Woodrue, played by John Glover, who steals samples of Pamela's venom, using it to create a serum that transforms people into massive hulking beasts. Woodrue plans to sell the serum to the highest bidder, but snooping around, Isley discovers his sinister plot. Now knowing too much, Jason kills Pam by drenching her in various chemicals. However, a while later she resurrects as Poison Ivy, more plant than human and highly poisonous. Turns out that the chemicals bonded with her and gave her various powers, such as mind control pheromones and lethal kisses. First, Pam gets revenge on Woodrue, then she frees his venom serum test subject, Bane, played by Jeep Swenson, and finally before departing, Ivy burns down the laboratory. Using Bane as her henchman, Isley travels to Gotham City, where she confronts George Clooney, played by George Clooney, about a proposal for saving the environment. Her idea would however lead to millions of deaths, prompting George to obviously turn down Pam's radical suggestion. Angered, she decides to destroy Gotham and turn it into a tropical jungle. After meeting another supervillain in town, Mr. Freeze, played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, who plans to freeze the entire city, Ivy decides that he is her perfect partner in crime. Together, these two colorful rogues, with Bane in tow, sets out to heat and freeze Gotham City. Of course, the only ones who can stop their demented and illogical plot is George Clooney and his trusty sidekick Robin, played by Chris O'Donnell, and their new trusty sidekick Batgirl, played by Alicia Silverstone. Wow, that was a really long plot synopsis for such a crappy movie. You know, I've never given these Batman and Robin villains so much thought as I have now when writing these. Yeah, it's been a torment to make these videos. Well, it's almost over. I guess I have to get into it now. On paper, I don't think this adaptation of Poison Ivy is all that bad. She's a fanatic plant lover who wants to kill off humanity and give back the planet to the flora, saving Mother Nature. That sounds like Ivy, right? Sure, she's not sympathetic in the slightest, but then again, in a lot of comics, especially older ones, Pam was portrayed as a pure evil bastard, so the character is pretty accurate to some versions of the source material. They also got it right by making Jason Woodrue, aka the Floronic Man, the guy who created Ivy. But just like with Freeze, it's the actual portrayal of her that's absolutely horrendous. Her dialogue is filled with cheesy and hammy lines, and of course Uma Thurman gives a terribly over-the-top performance, and the visual design of the character is really goofy. As usual, I get into those two latter points later in the video. By 1997, when this movie came out, we had gotten comics where Pam was portrayed in a sympathetic light, so they could have gone that route instead, and I would have preferred that over pure evil Ivy. But of course, it's not like it matters. A sympathetic Ivy wouldn't have been any good in this movie. I mean, look at Freeze. Going in the direction they did does make sense too, as two tragic and sad rogues probably wouldn't have worked. But nothing else in this movie does, so who cares? Just like I did in Freeze's video, I have to bring up the plot point of him and Ivy teaming up when they have completely opposite goals. Tropical jungles don't go that well with a frozen wasteland. What in heaven's name possessed the movie makers to choose these particular two villains? Why not Ivy and Scarecrow instead, or Freeze and Mad Hatter? I don't know, anything would have worked better than these two. What's their motivation for being so chummy anyway? Freeze certain doesn't seem to have any. In Ivy's case, they do kind of hint that she's attracted to Victor, possibly because he's the only man who's not affected by her pheromones. Therefore, he's the only real man. Ivy also pulls the plug on Victor's wife, Nora, and blames it on Batman. She seems to do it out of jealousy, or does she do it to push Freeze over to the dark side completely? Don't make me think too much about this movie. By the way, doesn't Ivy's plotline remind you of something? A certain other Schumacher rogue? That's right, Batman Forever's Riddler. Here we have two nerdy scientists working for Wayne Enterprises who go to Bruce with an insane proposition only to get shot down by him. They then become bitter supervillains who contacts another already established supervillain, freeze here, Two-Face him forever, and propose a team-up. Akiva Goldsman wrote both movies, so he basically ripped off himself. You see, he cared so little about this shitty movie that he didn't even bother to write a proper script. As for Uma Thurman's performance, it's like I said, over the top as hell, and frankly cringeworthy. I cringe more at her than Schwarzenegger and Tommy Lee. I don't know what it is, she's just so campy and cartoony. Every single line of hers is just delivered in such a flamboyant and hammy way. I really can't stand it. It actually makes me feel ill. Mother Nature. Could Thurman have played a good Ivy? Sure, with a better script and different directions, she certainly could have. Like with all the Schumacher rogues, the blame isn't all on the actors, but also on, well, Schumacher obviously, but more importantly on Warner Brothers. They wanted these goofy movies. I still don't think Thurman's ideal for the role, and this is completely subjective, but I don't find her attractive enough to play Poison Ivy, and being physically attractive is kind of a big part of the character. But like I said, it's subjective. As for the visual design, I don't really know what's going on there. Like her main outfit, this lime green rubber or latex thing that looks like it was made out of a raincoat. It's really ugly looking and not something I'd imagine the sensual Poison Ivy to wear. She does wear in a few scenes something that more resembles Ivy's classic costume from the comics and the animated series. That one is actually alright. But then there's her hairdos. Besides this movie, when has Ivy ever had these goofy sculptures on her head? She's never had anything but a normal hairdo in the comics. It's like with Forever's Riddler. In all other forms of media, he's also always had normal looking hair. But for some reason in that movie, they gave him a bright red buzz cut. They just had to goof everything up in these movies, didn't they? Also, what's up with that thing on her face? That's sort of a domino mask, but not quite. What's the idea of giving Poison Ivy a mask anyway? She's never had one. It's like giving the Joker a mask. In conclusion, just like Batman and Robin's freeze, this Poison Ivy may seem alright on paper, but the way it was executed in the actual film is just awful. Next up on Batman movie villains, we'll be taking a look at Jeep Swenson's Bane. Sadly, yet again from Batman and Robin. I kind of debated whether I should actually spotlight Bane, as he's really just a glorified henchman. But in the end, I want this series to be as complete as possible. That video will be very short though, and I'll do it pretty soon. Much sooner than usual, so we can get it over with, and finally move on to the Nolan rogues. So stay tuned for that. And remember, Arkham Asylum awaits you in the next video.